All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another one of our CSTEM Engaged Learning Spotlight webinars. My name is Daniel Ryan, and I'm the Education Service Manager for the UC Davis CSTEM Center. With me today, I also have Professor Harry Chang. If you want to introduce yourself really quick, Professor Chang.
Yeah, my name is Harry Chang. I'm a professor here at UC Davis and also director of UC Davis CSTEM Center. Welcome, everyone.
Excellent, thank you. So the whole point of this webinar series that we're doing is to put the spotlight on some of our districts that we're working with that are putting such a great effort into implementing the hands-on coding and robotics and math curriculum that the CSTEM Center provides. And so today I'm really proud to have Redlands Unified School District here to share a little bit about what they've been doing with the CSTEM program. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kenneth Wagner, the Associate Superintendent of Educational Services in Redlands Unified, to start off with a little bit more information about their CSTEM implementation.
All right, thank you very much, Daniel, and thank you for having us here today with everybody and get to spend a little bit of time talking about what we're doing in Redlands, or what we have been doing in Redlands, and what we continue to do. I also like to introduce my colleague who's been working with us for the last year or so, Deepika Srivastava. Deepika has been hired by Redlands to be our coordinator of STEAM and innovation. And she's kind of helping us take CSTEM to the next level as its integration with our math series and our math sequence. And as she's bringing up kind of the presentation that we'll go through today, I don't want to take a great amount of time talking about our journey because Deepika knows the ins and outs and the details, and that's probably what you're really here to see. But I do want to point out to the idea that this has been new for Redlands in the last 3 years. And really, unfortunately, this year we didn't have the opportunity to have data because, of course, the world closed down. But we were super excited and anticipating having some great data this year to be able to show the effectiveness of our implementation strategies over the last couple of years. But our journey really quickly for everybody, Redlands hired a new superintendent 3 years ago now. And then shortly after a new superintendent, Mauricio Ariano, was hired for Redlands, then I was hired to be the new assistant superintendent of educational services in Redlands, the November of the same year that he was hired. And between that and the end of that year, it was clear that math was going to be the focus area that we were going to settle into. And I had some ideas that I had learned from previous experiences in working with Deepika and even working with Dr. Chang and Daniel at UC Davis that I thought would be great fit in Redlands. Along those same times, we had created a new vision in Redlands, and you can see that here, identifying an Excel model that shows 5 different areas. Now, these aren't necessarily areas that might seem dramatically different from anybody else, but they're kind of guiding principles in Redlands that have changed our program and our structure of what we do. And as you look at those 5 things, 4 of those fit precisely with a CSTEM program. Robotics and innovation and math instruction for the sake of all of our students in education. Redlands was not the most innovative district. And so enhancing our learning through innovation was of super priority. A challenge is maintaining a high level of academics that Redlands has always been, knowing that that in Redlands we struggle with math just like everybody else. We have great partnerships. We work with local colleges, but UC Davis has become a great partner of ours. And then the opportunity to be able to reach all kids in a different format, knowing that they disengage pretty early, oftentimes in math. And so I'll extend these a little bit further real quick. As you can see, we've done a tremendous amount of work with innovation over the last few years because we wanted to connect with our populations that don't necessarily have innovation at their fingertips. So we created a plan where all of our innovation went into our most struggling schools first. And we called it an equity support plan, where we brought innovation labs into our most challenged, our historically challenging and struggling academic elementaries and middle schools. And that has created a whole different learning environment for our students in these environments. But again, CSTEM has given us the opportunity to bring innovation into mathematics learning. Going to the next slide, we're talking about excellence in academics. Again, Redlands has been a high achieving district, but when you dig into the data, you find out that math starts to struggle around 5th grade. We see a significant loss. I don't know if I want to call it a loss, but a stagnation in math achievement between 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, which is a big window of time. We then find ourselves dramatically increasing again once we get to high school, but our middle years, we found that we were losing ground and not maintaining the same momentum that we do in other subject areas. And part of that, of course, I think, as everybody experiences, is that students tend to disengage when it gets tough. And they don't like going to math class, or they didn't, I should say, because they do now. They do now in Redlands because of CSTEM. We'll go on a little bit here. Our community partnerships, not only locally, but more abroad with our universities and our college systems. But we have Esri in Redlands. Esri is the biggest producer of global information systems, GIS. We have them in our backyard, and we have the opportunity of doing things like spatial science and spatial learning for students in technology. Our computer science is now flourishing with the help of our partners. I'll go on. A lot of other organizations that we work with in our partnerships, you can see none of this really, well, I shouldn't say none of it. Almost all of this was not in place 3 years ago. With our new vision of innovation and education, all of this has kind of been new to the learning environment in Redlands. And it's been a pretty dramatic change for us. Speaking specifically about CSTEM, so we are now in 3 years short time, we have CSTEM courses in every one of our middle schools and every one of our high schools from 6th grade through Integrated Math 2. We offered Integrated Math 2 this year with great help from Daniel and Dr. Chang with resources and materials, but our teachers did a great job of working with our partners at UC Davis to implement Integrated Math 1 and 2 and our Math 6th, 7th, and 8th programs. We are teaming all of our math classes, at least for the very beginning of students' experiences, with a computer science course as well, at least in their first year of opportunity. Once kids have had a foundational computer science learning opportunity, and Deepika will share more here in a little bit, then students are able to just progress through the CSTEM math courses as standalone. However, in that first year, it kind of takes both. Going on a little bit more, we have a strong belief that all of our students are capable and success in math. Now, they don't necessarily all want to be successful in math, and sometimes we have to create ways to help them keep that fire lit when it comes to math instruction. And CSTEM has really helped us to do that. Our original target group was this group of students that you see here, more at risk, more English learner, more standards not met kind of groups of students. What we found, though, is uninterested math students don't necessarily come in these packages. And so we quickly were able to offer and create opportunity for kids that just like science, kids that just like computer science. Well, they tended to be the same kids that also really got more engaged in math through CSTEM. So what started out to be a program for more of our at-risk populations to re-engage, really the re-engagement was more of a priority. And we still target struggling math students. but in those same classes are a mixture of kids who really are more engaged in computer science. Therefore, we are also teaching them math at a high level. And the team of kids working together really creates a successful environment. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Deepika and let her share a little bit. She's more of the, I would call, high-level academic, knows the ins and outs and knows all the detail of math instruction and CSTEM program. So she's probably the one you more want to hear from. So we're going to let her talk a little bit. Go ahead, Deepika.
Thank you, Dr. Wagner. I joined Redlands a year ago, and our data, as Dr. Wagner mentioned, is very revealing that we lost almost 14% of our students that did not meet standards, even they started strong at 3rd grade. And just reflecting on that piece of data and looking where we lost these kids, it was their self-perception and their self-esteem was being predefined by their math, the grades in their math classroom, their standardized test scores, and their own self-perception or teachers' feedback. Students were disengaging. So CSTEM, when Dr. Wagner brought it almost 3 years now in Redlands, it was our belief that it should be our best first instruction to meet the needs of our diverse learners. And we worked in collaboration with UC Davis to build capacity with our teachers and our administrators to identify these students and to integrate coding and robotics into math instruction while keeping the focus on the California Common Core math standards. So this was, I think, one of the most innovative pieces that we have. It was not an intervention program. It was not an enrichment for our GATE learners, but it was our best first instruction to ensure that all students have the opportunity to succeed in math classroom. And what I realized walking into the classrooms where CSTEM was being implemented is that CSTEM brought live the abstract math standards that the students struggled with in middle school. And so like graphing a linear equation, they were graphing, but they never know why, what is a slope, what is an intercept. They were just going through the procedure. They really did not internalize the material. And so they never engaged with the curriculum. So CSTEM gave them an opportunity to cognitively engage with the curriculum using coding and robotics, and in a setting that alleviated their anxiety, their self-perception. So for example, students were supposed to plot a straight line or plot a linear graph, but in order to do that, they had to have the solid foundation of order of operations. And they can only do that if they engage with the curriculum. They started strong at 3rd grade, but by the time they were in 5th grade, they were struggling. But back when we gave them that treatment of CSTEM, the kids stayed longer with the problem. They were engaging with the curriculum. They kept trying, they failed, but they still stayed longer with the problem. And that is where we saw the biggest return for our efforts, where they were critiquing the reasoning of others. They were modeling math problems. They were engaging with the curriculum using multisensory ways. And they were implementing the standards of mathematical practice even without having the knowledge that they were engaging in. And now the anxiety to be in that math classroom where they were being constantly judged through a worksheet was taken away, and the students were able to enjoy the math curriculum. Once again, while the time they reached in the high school, they had quadratic equation, they were finding roots for years and they never knew why they were finding a root of an equation. What does a root really look like? What does it really mean? Why does some quadratic equations had real roots and why some had complex? And so just having the visual look where they were programming a robot to plot a quadratic function, where they were looking at the roots and the vertex of a quadratic equation, they were finally able to make sense. We don't, just realize that when kids start in preschool math, they enjoy math because they are working with real world problems where they are looking at patterns, recognizing patterns, counting. And by the time they reach the upper elementary grades, they get into that rote learning of times tables and arithmetic. And secondary and high school math are completely abstract. And so they start disengaging. CSTEM brought that relevance back into the math classroom, where they were using the math concepts that they were supposed to learn and engaging with the curriculum in a manner that was enjoyable, that was challenging them, that was forcing them to think and collaborate. And it just took away that anxiety, and I think it did build a lot of self-esteem. We did a recent survey to place our students into CSTEM classroom, and the biggest data piece that came out from that survey that we did in January this year, that the students said they did not hate math because they did not like the content. They hate math because of the repeated unperformance or their grades in the math classroom. And so we had to take away that testing piece and say, okay, enjoy this, and build that self-esteem and self-perception in order to move forward, in order to put them in a place where they really start engaging with the curriculum. I want to play this video, a short video for everyone. And just this short video gives you an idea that these students were not only engaging in problem solving, they were collaborating, they were communicating, they were creative in order to create a solution to get their robot from point A to point B. And in order to get their robot, they also had to visualize what the moves of the other robot will be so they don't bump into them. And so they were engaging in all those mathematical concepts and mathematical practices in a very non-threatening environment, which allowed them to take their learning into the next level. And that is where we saw the biggest return for our efforts, that the teachers were willing to take risks. The students were willing to take risks. They had not shut down in a math classroom and say, okay, whatever. They were willing to engage. They were arguing, they were critiquing. We had students come back to the teachers in the math during lunch and say, I want to finish my programming. I want to make sure my robot works. I need to problem solve. I need to make sure that my robot reaches the end point. And that is, I think, our biggest achievement. I know we do not have quantitative data, but our qualitative data, walking into the classroom, talking to the students, just observing them while they are engaging with the curriculum, was really meaningful, that these students have crossed that barrier where their self-perception about their own math abilities and the math as a subject has changed. I want to show this. We took our students to, I'll let you. We took our students for the first time to California STEAM Symposium, and these kids had made all kinds of robots, and using the learning that happened in the math classroom and in their supportive computer science classroom, they were challenging each other. And it was all, I mean, I truly believe our CSTEM implementation in Redlands is based on the UDL framework, where we provide students with multiple access points to access the curriculum and multiple ways to express their learning. And this just fit, and that's why we say, we call this as a best first instruction. We did not call it, we did not use this program for intervention or enrichment for academically, highly academic students or GATE or honors. We kept it in the mainstream, giving every kid an opportunity to be successful. Dr. Wagner, do you want to add on this? I know you're very passionate about the UDL framework.
Well, again, I mean, I think when you're talking about best first instruction, the only caveat I would say is that we didn't replace our entire math curriculum. So we still have the same series of math 6, 7, 8, integrated 1, 2, 3, and so on. But alongside it is this math series for kids that we're able to re-engage into math. And so it hasn't replaced our entire math program. It's kind of still growing, but it's going alongside our math program. But kids decide, they either go into this math series or they go into a regular math series with our regular adoption. And so we created an align or alongside opportunity for groups of kids that are just really struggling. So they already tried regular math series. We're not doing well, we're not engaging, or just unengaged in math. And so we provided this as a different opportunity and then allowed them to progress. So they progress the same as our regular math series. They assess the same as our regular math series. And again, we're expecting to see better growth from this math series. Our anecdotal data and our local assessments are showing that. We certainly are seeing a much broader re-engagement with these kids, and joy and happiness and all that kind of stuff, as Deepika described, with math classrooms. And so we're expecting that to translate into, you know, state testing data, but we just don't have that yet. I do know that when you walk into any of these classrooms, this is what you see on a daily basis, and you will see kids that can explain to you exactly how the math concept works and why they're sorting or coding or programming, you know, their opportunities the way that they need to solve the problem. It's real world problem solving that they're doing in class every day, and they're really having fun doing it. As Deepika said, they don't want to leave when the period's over if they're not done solving whatever the application was for that day. And so I'll wrap up here real quick. We could get some questions. We wanted to also mention that this year, this past year, before we had closure and everything, we were able to provide the first Southern California CSTEM Symposium. So we're thankful to our partners at UC Davis, Dr. Chang and Daniel, for giving us the opportunity at University of Redlands here in Redlands to provide the CSTEM Symposium. I'm pretty certain we'll be continuing this in the future to provide an opportunity in Southern California to learn from the practitioners. And my favorite part about this is it's the teachers that are putting on these sessions. And so local area teachers are able to sign up and go to the CSTEM Symposium and learn from our teachers and other neighboring districts' teachers who are implementing the CSTEM classes. Again, they've got more nuts and bolts to share with that. And I think that's teachers like learning from teachers.
And in addition to the CSTEM Symposium, we added a Makerspace for our students to come out and show their coding and robotic skills and what they have learned in the classrooms. And I was truly, I'm sure Daniel can add and Dr. Chang can add to what they saw about our students. So Daniel and Dr. Chang, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. Yeah, we have seen tons of results and exciting videos and images come from your classroom. So it's been really, really great to see the Redlands implementation growing over the past couple of years. Before we turn it over to the audience for questions, I did have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. First off, about how many teachers do you have participating in the program? And of those teachers, what kind of experience did they have with coding and robotics beforehand?
Deepika, you take that one.
Right. Okay. We have one teacher at each of the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level at 4 of our middle schools, and then 3 of our comprehensive high school. We are bringing CSTEM to our continuation high school in the fall. So we have a total of 19 teachers that are teaching CSTEM from grade 6 to 10. And we have CSTEM starting from 6th grade all the way to integrated math 2. And then we are integrating our students who will be passing integrated maths to CSTEM course in a regular integrated math 3 course next year. So we have a total of 19 teachers, and based on the experience, except for one teacher who had taught AP computer science principles, none of our teachers had a coding background. So they were like blank slates, but I really appreciate the enthusiasm and their willingness to come and willingness to take this risk with us and believing in us that this is going to be really good for our students. So I truly appreciate their willingness, and they have done a truly remarkable job. They have supported each other. We have a CSTEM professional learning network that we meet every other month for a full day. They support each other, and they really have, they collaborate, and it's really good what we're doing right now.
Let me add real quick to that, because you have to catch that part of it. Deepika leads a professional learning network, which those teachers all are able to get together for half days at least every other month. And they are a professional learning network together. It keeps them on sequence with each other. It keeps them on support with each other. It keeps them ahead of the curriculum at every classroom, so that when they struggle, they can rely on each other. And whenever they struggle with technology, they just call Deepika and she works out the kinks, you know, or calls Daniel and they work out the kinks. But because there are kinks, there are things that they will run into because they didn't come in with a ton of experience. As she said, they're not computer science teachers, now math teachers. These are math teachers who are learning computer science on the fly with little experience, and they're able to do it, and they're doing a great job.
And just to add to that, you know, when these teachers are teaching computer science and robotics to these students, I mean, I have had this personal experience with my 2 children. These kids start with the teacher, but they are way ahead of the curve very soon. So, but our teachers are doing a really good job at supporting these students with the math concepts and letting the students take off with their coding and robotics and their creativity and imagination. So I think that mindset where a teacher is saying, okay, let me learn from you, let me see what you have done. And they're doing an amazing job in building those relationships in the classroom where risk-taking is a norm.
Excellent. Thank you. That's really, really great to hear. Just to add to that a little bit, you've talked so much about how the students are getting excited and engaged and wanting to participate in this. Have you noticed any of those similar changes to the teachers, where the teachers are getting more engaged with the curriculum that they're doing, or more excited about teaching these students as a result of any of the professional learning you're doing or any of the professional development that we've done for them?
Yes, in the sense that we have one of our teachers as a CSTEM Administrator of the Year in 2019. We have another middle school teacher, Joshua Barner, who's leading the middle school series. We are building capacity with him so he can be a mentor for his peers. And I think the peer mentoring is really helpful, where teachers reach out to each other and they want to be CSTEM teachers. It's not that they have been forced into something that they're not comfortable with. They might have started with something that it's like the fear of unknown, but now they really enjoy. They enjoy the enthusiasm the students have in the classroom, and the students leave the classroom with, and coming back again during their lunch or after school is like, I think that's the biggest seller, where the kids want to learn more.
Excellent. Thank you. Professor Chang, did you have any questions you wanted to add to this before I turn it over to the audience?
Thank you, Ken and Deepika, for your excellent presentation. And I really appreciate your leadership and the great effort to build the team in Redlands and in collaborating with us to work on this one of the most challenging K-12 educational issues on the math education. You've really done an amazing job. So I also appreciate your leadership and hosting our first CSTEM symposium in Southern California. It is one of the biggest crowd, where for the first time we have about 150 people attended the symposium. So one question I have is, what's the student demographic population in your school district? I know you have mentioned that you have a lot of at-risk students, but what is the demographic populations?
So Redlands is a little bit more affluent than most. We're at right around 59 or 60% free and reduced lunch. We keep growing up. Matter of fact, I think we're hitting the 60.5% mark. White and Hispanic are our two major groups as far as demographics go. So one of the challenges that Redlands has, we're a very broad community. We have 21,000 students, and we service about 7 or 8 cities. And so you have super affluent neighborhoods, and then you go down the road and you have not so affluent neighborhoods. And so you have a broad mixture of kids and classes that we're able to serve. And like I said before, or a little earlier, we started to target our struggling populations, but our struggling population definition changed over the course of our first 2 years. And finding kids that were just, again, it's really, our administrators have done a good job of identifying students who are disengaged rather than looking for groups or populations of students. Really, they were looking at a disengagement point, because an unengaged math student doesn't mean that they're not good at math. It just means that they don't like going to math class and they're not willing to put forth effort. An engaged math student doesn't come in a pretty package. And once you grab their attention and engage them, then you can really see what their math skills are. And this has really kind of challenged that for our kids and even our teachers to broaden their horizons as far as thinking about unengaged math students versus trying to put them in packages or groups.
Yeah, so you really are talking about the close achievement gap. So you have very wide range of student population, and but there's quite a gap, achievement gap between different group. So you are using the CSTEM program to close those achievement gap. That's what you are trying to do, I think. Right?
Yeah, I will comment too, all the funding that we used was LCAP funds. So LCAP funds have to target, your student groups, your unduplicated count student groups, your English learners, your foster, your special, all those different special groups have to be serviced. And so we make sure that at least 60% of our students in those classes meet one of those categories, but that's really kind of strictly a funding source mechanism versus, again, we're trying to outfit and serve the students that have the math need versus trying to check a box. So
great, thank you.
And I heard you say the achievement gap. Right now, I think we are trying to first close the opportunity gap that our students have in this community. We have a very diverse community. We have kids whose parents are engineers and doctors at Esri and Loma Linda University hospitals. And down the street, we have the working class. So right now, using coding and robotics, integrating it into the math curriculum, we are closing the opportunity gap so that all kids have the opportunity to the STEAM tools in order to be successful in the 21st century workforce. We don't know where this kid will go on.
I will say, if people do have questions, and I'm not sure how you'll get them, our communication or contacts, but Deepika is a special kind of resource for this kind of thing beyond Daniel. Daniel obviously is the amazing resource at UC Davis. Deepika is an amazing resource for Redlands, but also a very willing and capable resource for you when you run into any troubleshooting problems, whether it's with math content or with computer science content or how the things marry together. And so we are very fortunate to have her in Redlands. You can reach out to me if it's more, where the funding comes from or the, cabinet level, board level kind of stuff. But when it comes to the pudding and the proof, Deepika is the one that can speak to it all specifically. And so I support her and she supports the teachers, and that's really where the success lies.
Phyllis Lozoya, I think I'm your oncoming fall teacher.
Yes, from Orangewood High School.
Right. I am so excited. I can't tell you.
Thank you.
I've been asking to be allowed to do programming at Orangewood for a very long time, and it just hasn't happened. Limited staff, and so there just hasn't been a time or place for me to be able to do that. So now there's this real excitement for the CSTEM math, and so I'm just really excited. I can hardly wait.
Well,
And it's nice to finally meet you, Deepika.
Phyllis, you'll be in excellent hands, Phyllis. I
hope so, because I'm going to need a lot of support.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I want to take this moment to talk to you as a community member, not as a Redlands employee. I have lived in this community for over 13 years, and we had a new superintendent in the fall of 2017. And that's when, I mean, Redlands community has been historically left behind with STEAM, and because there were parents who could afford all this using, I mean, and have their clubs or have those, their kids into summer camps where they would pay $1,000 a week. But there was nothing, there was no coding, there was no robotics in the classroom. And it was, Redlands was academically very high, and it's still very high, but it was the real world application, and STEAM was really missing. Just in like STEAM, you would see core math and science classes and AP classes for science and math. That was pretty much. And then we have a new superintendent in 2017 fall, and things just changed. I mean, I can't be more happy as a parent and as a community member that we are now the almost like leading innovative district in Southern California because of the vision and the thought and the caring thought of our new superintendent. So I'm sure Dr. Wagner joined because of him. He wouldn't have come to Redlands without Mauricio, but he's absolutely amazing.
If you have any questions afterwards or anything, you can email me, email Ken, Deepika, Professor Chang, any of us. We're more than happy to help point you in the right direction or answer any of your questions that you have, and really help you get started with this unique way of engaging your students. We greatly appreciate you joining us to really hear about the insights and experience that Redlands has had with the CSTEM program.